Hello and welcome to Hockey Talkie, where we discuss news and rumblings from around the league, from around hockey, from around sports in general. Things that go beyond just game recaps, but also still pertain to the Blackhawks. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the Blackhawks logo and whether or not they should keep it. Now, if you haven't heard, the other day, the Cleveland Indians in Major League Baseball announced that the Indians would no longer be using their Chief Wahoo logo that they've been using since the 1940s, and that has re-energized discussions about how our professional sports teams' logos and names, how some of them represent our minority cultures, and specifically in this case, our Native American population. And of course, one of the logos that comes up in these talks is the Chicago Blackhawks logo, which depicts historical Sauk leader Chief Blackhawk. The thing is, though, that there is a big difference between the logo that the Blackhawks use that depicts Chief Blackhawk and the Chief Wahoo logo that the Indians have been using. And it mostly pertains to the way those logos are drawn. On one hand, you have the Blackhawks logo, which is a fairly realistic, albeit simplified, but fairly proportional drawing of a human head. On the other hand, you have Chief Wahoo, which is very much a cartoon caricature that exaggerates the stereotypical features of Native Americans. Although caricatures and stereotypes can be used and justified in a comedic setting, a professional sports franchise's logo, a business's logo, remember these sports teams are businesses first and foremost, that's not really the medium for it. Our world and our cultures have changed drastically since the days when logos such as Chief Wahoo were drawn. You look at old Looney Tune cartoons and just notice all the ridiculous ways the characters were drawn and the stereotypes and everything, and there's no way that stuff would get drawn today. Honestly, it doesn't even matter if it offends anyone. It's really just in poor taste. We simply can do better than that. For those of you who fall on the side that these logos, these names should be changed because they are offensive, I'm going to say that you can't really demand that type of change. These are private companies and they can do whatever they want with their naming and their branding. The way that you can make them change, or at least promote them changing, is just to not support them, not support them financially, because these are businesses and money is really what matters at the root for them. If enough people do not like their branding enough to not support them financially and their numbers dip because of it, change will happen. And remember, deeming something as offensive is a very slippery slope. Let's take, for example, a lot of colleges throughout the nation have the mascot as the Bulldogs. Does that mean they support dogfighting? I certainly don't think so, but one could probably make that argument. What about all those Catholic schools across the country with the mascots of the Crusaders? If you are familiar with medieval times, you'll know that the Crusades were a very violent time, and those violent types of acts probably would be considered terrorism nowadays. So remember, just because you're offended by something doesn't mean you're right. Where do you draw that line? It's a very gray area, very slippery slope. You got to be careful if you use that as an argument. Ultimately, though, it's going to be up to them. It's going to be up to the businesses, up to the sports franchises. And you see with the Indians in Major League Baseball, they're kind of taking a proactive approach, saying, you know what, we've heard you guys, and we agree that our future is probably better off leaving Chief Wahoo behind, although we are still going to try and benefit financially from limited retro gear sales. In addition to that, you do have the Blackhawks, who have been proactive with tribe leaders, making sure that any icons or symbols relating to Native Americans in their franchise, most notably the primary and secondary logos for the Hawks, that they're all right with the people that it depicts. And it seems like they've gotten that blessing. And so beyond that, what does it matter? Now, on the flip side, there are many people out there who are entrenched in history and tradition and believe, because these brands and logos have been around for many, many, many years, been around forever, that they deserve to stay. If you are one of those people, I severely encourage you to broaden your horizons a little bit, because history and tradition and doing things a certain way just because that's the way they've always been done, that reason alone is not good enough for anything. There needs to be a better reason to justify it. Our culture constantly changes, and it will continue to change whether we like it or not. And we as a society have to use that to adapt and grow. Otherwise, we'd still have slavery, women still wouldn't be able to vote, and we wouldn't have all those ridiculous foods on a stick at state fairs. Think about that. Now, to answer the original question, should the Blackhawks logo stay or should it go? Now, I personally believe it should and will stay for the long haul. The logo, in my opinion, is not drawn in an offensive manner. I feel like it's very respectably drawn in a way that honors a very important person in the history of the United States. And it doesn't seem like it's the type of logo that's going to have enough people that despise it to make it financially make sense to remove that logo, especially when you remember that it's one of the most beloved logos and uniforms in all of sports. So I don't really see that ever happening. But my opinion isn't the end-all be-all. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'd love to read what you think of the Blackhawks logo, the Indians logo, the Redskins name, just the discussion in general. But please, let's try not to attack people. This is the type of debate, the type of discussion that can get very heated and we can butt heads a lot. Let's remember that everyone has their own life experiences that shape their own beliefs. So let's try and respect that and be civil about that. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. But most importantly, as always, stay safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you next time.